Hey everybody, I'm Robert and I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. Today is Friday, so that means it's 3-question blitz time. First of all, I hope you had a great week. Hope you're getting ready to kick off an even better weekend. Let's just jump right into it. Today we've got 3 questions and of course the bonus question as well. All 3 questions were sent in by one person on YouTube. He put it nice and detailed, 1, 2, 3, and I said, you know what, this is great. They're all along the same lines. Basically, what happens if you crash on the Nürburgring? Who carries the liability? Number 1 is there a difference between insurance on the Nürburgring as well as insurance on the normal road? That's question 1. Number 2 is what happens if somebody crashes to you while you're on the track? Who pays for it? That's a neat topic because there are differences in the type of setting for the day that we'll go into as well. And then number 3, what if there's an oil slick that makes you crash? So another car spills oil, you guys end up crashing because another car spilled that oil, and is it the Nürburgring's fault? Is it your fault? Who pays for this? It was actually interesting because he asked, does the Nürburgring pay for it because they didn't clean it up fast enough? Yeah, probably not, huh? Nürburgring's not paying for anything if you crash on the Nürburgring, but we'll get into that detail as well. Finally, the bonus. I would have to say that this was the most asked question of the week. I put a couple YouTube videos up this week. One was when we got the 620R delivered. The second one was when we did a lap, I guess it was actually posted up just yesterday in the 620R, and it was a much quicker lap. What about break-in? Don't you break in your cars? Don't you drive for 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 miles to make sure that the rings are bed in, that everything is set? No, I don't. To be honest with you, I don't have the patience to do it. I don't really want to take the time to do it. It's not something that I'm interested in. It's something that I don't necessarily think is a bad thing to do, but I don't believe that it needs to be done either. Part of the run-in period, what manufacturers want to do is obviously see that the rings get seated, that everything in the car works well. And I really do think that a lot of manufacturers set this time frame as a period where they're asking you to run the car in maybe for 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 miles and make sure that there's no errors in the car, make sure that there's no warranty issues that need to be fixed before you go out and push the car. You'll see in my first lap, I was taking it somewhat easy in the sense of, yes, it was still a relatively quick lap, but I was listening to the braking systems, feeling the suspension to see if it felt like anything was loose. The car just had a PDI. They knew what I was doing with it, so they went over everything with a fine-tooth comb. The cars go on the dyno from the manufacturer. They do get run up in the RPM range. So if I have to be honest with you, I really don't think that that doing a break-in is something that is really needed in my case. I've had many motors on many cars. They always seem to work, and in fact something that's really interesting is when we will compare our cars that are broken in my way, which is on the track, versus engines that are just street driven really light. Our cars usually tend to be stronger. They actually seem to make more power, so that's also a positive thing. I'm not saying that that's fact that they will make power, but there is something to say about using the car the way that you're going to use it from day one, and that's something that we do. And like I said, we've got cars with many kilometers on them. One thing that we did, actually ended up breaking in the M3 Taxi before we ran it, and it was only because we ended up driving it a couple places and it was just chance before we had Team Schirmer build it, and that motor lasted no longer than any other motor that we would expect before the rings actually failed and we ended up putting a new motor in it. So yeah, like I said, for me, my use on the cars, we run them, race teams run their engines in on the engine dyno often, and they basically are just looking that they seat the rings, make sure that everything works, that all their pressures are good, and they send them out. The cars are built to such tolerances today that a catastrophic failure in our motor is probably going to happen either way. So there you go. No, I don't break in the motors, and I don't have the patience to or the desire to. I just want to go straight on the track with them. Question 1. Is there a difference regarding insurance for the normal road versus the Nürburgring? Yes and no. When you are on the Nürburgring for Touristenfahrten, that is seen as, mind you, I say seen as a public road, and it's seen as a road where you have to be insured and you have to follow all road rules to go on on this track. A lot of insurance companies will have in their actual insurance policy a clause that says that the Nürburgring is not insured. Now, something that's very interesting is they might have that clause in there, but if you were to have an accident during Touristenfahrten, during public drives, your insurance company will pay out. They have to legally pay out, because if you're anywhere that's seen as a public road or somewhere that requires public road and public insurance to drive on, they have to legally pay out. But what they can do in the backside is sue you for that money and come after you to get that money back. So whereas they may have paid out at the beginning, they may not be forgiving it on the backside. So that's usually what ends up happening. This happens with people that come down from the UK. Most UK insurance companies absolutely forbid the Nürburgring. They pay out and then they go after them and chase them for the money afterwards. So the other side of it is that when you're driving on a track day is not always seen as a public day. Some organizers will set up their track day around only having road cars that are street legal. All the cars cannot run slicks. They have to run road legal tires as well. And in those cases, actually, most insurance companies will pay out as well, as long as it was considered to be a road legal day. The minute that they allow race cars on the track and they allow slicks on the track, at that point, it's no longer insurable. The minute that they allow timing, that they allow laps for time and maybe give awards for the fastest cars, then at that point, it's no longer street legal and the insurance companies don't have to pay out. So you really need to look into what is your track day doing and how are they organized. The second question is, what if somebody crashes into you while you're on the ring? Who pays for it? If there's a crash involving two cars, which mind you, you need to keep an understanding that that is the most rare type of crash on the Nürburgring, is where somebody hits another car. The most common one is you get in over your head, you run out of talent, and you hit the wall. It's usually a one-man operation or a one-car operation, and that's what most crashes are. However, you have heard about this rare situation that somebody hits somebody else. At that point, the police do get involved and the police come on the track. Again, because we're looking at this from a public road aspect, the police will come on the track. They'll do an assessment of the situation. Maybe someone had video rolling, maybe someone had witnesses to the accident, and they'll say, yes, this is what happened. Now, the Nürburgring is seen as a two-lane road, okay? So you've seen some videos of me running quite quick in the McLaren. I go to pass somebody, they're on the right and I'm on the left. If that person swerved over to the left and I hit them, they would be at fault because the slower car needs to stay right, just as legal road rules. If they are on the right and I clip them as I'm passing them, then it's my fault because I veered into their lane and I hit them, just as you would expect on the road. If the police come, that needs to be proven, obviously, right? If I clip somebody and I tell a story and say, oh man, he veered over and hit me, and then the other guy says, I didn't veer over, he veered over and hit me, then the police are probably going to put the blame 50-50. And at that point, that's going to, maybe it goes to court, who knows? And in most cases, it's going to be you pay for your own damage and you move along. It's unfortunate because just like with any road crash, you need witnesses or you need proof. Is it tire marks? Is it where the debris is on the track from the two headlights hitting or your headlight and a taillight hitting? That's going to be what the police will use for this investigation to see who is at fault. If you truly do run into somebody else or somebody truly runs into you, the person who is at fault is the person whose insurance covers the bill, and that's the person that pays for it, just like it would be on the road. If you're on a track day where it is not a legal road and it is timing or slicks are allowed or the organizer says this is a true track day that's not road legal cars, at that point you basically are taking care of yourself. It's like a race. If somebody hits you and destroys your car, they pay for their car, you pay for your car. There have been instances where that's happened and there's been court cases that follow and the other car has been found negligent and they've had to pay for it. But that's case by case. But as a rule of thumb, when you go on a typical track day that allows race cars, that might allow timing, etc., at that point you are your own person, and unfortunately somebody else could cause you a lot of damage, and it's a little bit frustrating to think of. To add to the question 1 and 2 is what happens when somebody comes on the track that's not insured? We get this a lot where people might have lapsed insurance or they might come from a country that has completely different insurance requirements, and they run into you. Well, at that point, your insurance would take over. It would be essentially your uninsured motorist coverage. In most European countries, if a car doesn't have insurance, they will get their registration revoked. But again, if they're not turning in their plates and they just keep driving, there's not much that can be done about it. So in that case, your own insurance would need to pay for it. So you have to look at your insurance. What are you covered for? Are you covered for full coverage, liability only? And that's where it's going to come down to your own policy. The last question was, what if there's an oil slick that makes you crash on the track? It's a very, very good question. You've seen it happen before. There's videos out there where there's huge pileups because a car lost coolant and 10, 12 cars behind him pile up and it's millions of euro of damage. In that case, the car that loses the coolant is the car that is liable to pay for it. And in that case, they certainly hope that they have insurance, right? That's going to be a very big insurance payout. And this is the grounds for insurance companies to stop covering the Nürburgring, because they say, my gosh, look at the risk that we have in this scenario. I did a video a while ago about supercars and why I don't rent them on the track. And I said the liability is just too high. I don't want to lose my insurance policies. There's other companies on the Nürburgring that are renting cars for relatively low amounts of money. And I know for a fact that they're making insurance claims, and their insurance companies are paying out to fix these cars when they crash. And they do crash at a reasonable rate, unfortunately. And this is something, again, that I don't want to get into, because our business is based on needing the minimum insurances of liability. And the minute that I start putting in full coverage claims for people that crash their cars, I'm going to start either getting rates through the roof or canceling insurance policies. So when I go out and I crash on a coolant spill, the person who lost the coolant is going to be the one to pay for it. Now, what happens if that person drives on? One of our friends actually a couple years ago crashed his E46 on coolant. In fact, Annalise and I were in the GT86. We went through it sideways, and I called in the coolant spill. I said, you have a spill. I believe it was at Hochheischen. There was a coolant spill, and I called in immediately. I said, somebody's going to crash on this. It's very slippery. You need to put up a yellow flag. Before they could get the yellow flag up, maybe 30 seconds later, there was a crash there. We never found the car that lost the coolant. And that's a really unfortunate situation, because that means that the person who crashed on it, now they have to work with their insurance company to get their insurance company to pay for it as a no-fault accident, because they weren't at fault for it. It was circumstantial. There was coolant on the track. And so in that case, the Nürburgring holds themselves never liable for such things, because they can't see every coolant spill that happens. It could happen 1 second, and then 2 seconds later, somebody crashes on it. So in those cases, it falls onto your own insurance. Obviously, these are topics that we could go a lot more into detail on, and something that I'm doing is I'm working with the Nürburgring right now. We're preparing a series of questions for the Nürburgring, and I'm going to sit down and, again, by myself in an informal environment and answer all of these questions for you. You guys have given me about 15 or 20 really good ones already. What I'd like to see if you guys can do for me is in the bottom of this right here, ask me questions about the Nürburgring. What do you want to know about it? Why can't you film on it? Why can't you video on it? Why are there photographers? What happens with insurance? Why is there no in car inspection before coming on? Anything you can think of that you want to know about the Nürburgring, why don't you put in the comments below, because I am hopefully in the next week going to make a video with all of these questions being answered actually directly from the Nürburgring, not just he said, she said, and speculation, but it's actually going to be coming from the Nürburgring. They're going to take these questions that we have and actually put them through legal department to make sure that their answers are correct, to put them through the marketing department, to put them through the, what would you call it, public affairs department, and make sure that the answers that we get are correct. And it's going to be almost a little inside information from the Nürburgring about the Nürburgring. So any questions you guys might have, please put in the comments below and we'll get them answered. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's a new environment for me right now. We're not at Apex right now, and so there's going to be a couple videos in this sort of a setting over the next couple weeks. So be sure to answer or ask any questions that you have, not only about the Nürburgring, but about other topics, Nürburgring related, car related, really any topic. If you want to talk about shoes, somebody asked me recently actually why I wear shoes with no socks on them. I've got my groundies on, and they said that I have no socks. There's this novel thing that has surfaced in the last maybe like 50 years, and it's called socks that are very low rise, and those socks don't come out of your shoes. It's amazing. I know it looks like you have no socks on, but it's almost like magic. You actually do have socks on. You just can't see them. Check it out. Google it. It's real. Maybe I'll put a link in the description, Amazon.com, Amazon.de, where you might actually be able to buy socks that you don't see. Mind-boggling, I know. But anyways, guys, hope you're enjoying the channel. I really appreciate all the feedback. You guys are doing a great job. I say it every video. All of the comments are coming from you guys. Every video that we make is a response to these comments. Like I said, all 3 questions today were asked on yesterday's video. So please keep that coming, because that's what keeps the channel going. Anyways, really appreciate it, guys. Have a good one. We'll catch you later.